What up, y'all? Happy Tuesday. First full week within our 2024 year. So we'll be starting here in a few minutes, guys. Gear up, get ready to roll, and we'll be restarting the series. So the cool thing about this is that we're going to dive back in to what is the 4D sales process? How does it work? And this really is the bones of everything related into your sales process. How do we qualify? How do we disqualify? Which a lot of times is more important. And then we even tie in part of the 5 fatalities and a lot of the different stuff that we're doing in our Resurrect program to be able to understand, because that's the first step. Understand why our sales are dying. Because as a sales rep, what do you change if you don't know what you're doing wrong? And that's the really cool part about this, is that everything that we're doing is tailored specifically to you guys. So you guys can look at your book of business, you can look at your conversion rates, and ultimately create your personal training program. So we'll be starting here inside a few minutes, guys. We'll get rolling, and thank you for joining. So no matter where you guys are at, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, or you're directly here on Zoom, thank you, and we'll get started in a few minutes. Thanks, y'all. All right, we got about 2 minutes before we get rolling. So I'm going to challenge you guys with a question to be able to start this off. Self-reflect. You, within your sales process, where's the biggest area that you need to improve? And I'm asking you guys that question because I want you to self-reflect. If you're looking at your book of business, if you're looking at your sales process and even the commission, right? The dollars that you need to make, wherever it is, throw it inside the chat because I would love to be able to reference this and help you guys out, because that's what we're here to do, to be able to raise the floor of every sales rep here. Which means instead of raising the bar, making it harder to be able to get to, if we raise the floor together, if we all understand why, what questions we ask, and how to ultimately create value for our customers, it makes it a lot easier for everybody to win. So I'm going to challenge you guys with that. We got about a minute and a half before we get rolling. Throw it into the chat. I won't call anybody out, but just kind of a self-reflection thing. If you guys are on Zoom, right? If you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, go for it. But what's the biggest area that you want to improve on, right? Where within your sales process do you want to get better at? And let's just call this a Q1 goal. All right. As we get closer to this, I'll rattle them off. Obviously, I'm not going to say names, but we'll talk about what some of them are and make sure that this series is going to address that. How do we get better in each part of the business? So throw it in. Question: what is your guys' goal? We're going to shrink it down just to Q1. What's your own goal? What are you guys trying to get better at? What are you guys trying to improve, whether it be your book of business, your sales process? I don't care if it's commission, right? What are we trying to do? What's the goal that when we look at Q1 and we're done with it, how do you guys know that you're successful? And not necessarily just your company, right? Your company might say, hey, you need to sell X amount of dollars. That's great. We'll get there, right? The formulas and the conversions will happen. We'll get there. But you personally, what do you guys want to get better at? So go ahead, throw it inside the chat. There should be a chat button on your main bar if you're on Zoom. If you're not on Zoom, Facebook, LinkedIn, all good. You guys can throw it inside there. We don't interact live on that. If you do want to interact live with what we're doing, you guys have the ability. You can simply just go to norepsleftbehind.com. and you guys can sign up, then you can jump on the Zoom meeting, you can see it live, all that stuff. But yeah, so throw it in. I want a couple more answers before we get rolling here. I'll tell you, mine is time blocking. I need to get better at time blocking. I'm still very much, I mean, my side you consider inside sales, right? Because I still run a sales side and I have the operations of what I do to deliver. Mine's time blocking. I still get distracted by shiny things, or I still go over, even if it is a project that I have, I'm still constantly noticing that I'm going over on time, which ultimately results inside me not getting done everything I need to get done. So time blocking and being accountable to those time blockings is a big, big part of what I work on. So I'm challenging you guys, come on, be a part of this. This isn't just a open up the Zoom and go back to answering emails or go back into multitasking. I want this to be beneficial to you guys. So throw it in. One of the items that I got that I like is organization. So we're going to talk a lot about organization. That's very wide, right? Is it organization of your book of business? Is it organization of maybe the tasks that you guys have, organization of knowing what's closing, forecasting sales? It's wide, but I like it. What else we got? Find it hard to believe that very few people have no goals. And if they do, that's even scarier. So we're going to get rolling, guys. Thank you for joining. This is the kickoff of No Reps Left Behind. So if you're not familiar with what No Reps Left Behind is, we're going to go through it. We're going to get through all of that so you can understand the purpose and the mission behind what we're trying to do. And then we're going to tie that into helping you guys create what is ultimately your own personal training program. What we're here to be able to do today is talk about 3 critical milestones that you guys can instantly implement. 3 checkpoints, 3 milestones that you guys can instantly implement that will increase your close ratio. And when it comes to selling more work, the first thing that I'll tell you that is the biggest lie is that you don't need to quote more work to sell more work. By the time you get all the way to the point of quoting more work, you guys have invested so much time, energy, effort, and even probably you or your company's money into getting that quote there. You have no choice but to hope it sells. And a big thing that we'll be talking about is time management, is organization, okay, documentation. I love that stuff that's coming in because it's going to allow you guys to be able to qualify or even more importantly, disqualify customers. It's proven, right? Hours worth of time for chasing bad leads or bad sales opportunities that never have the opportunity to close. And that's what you guys are going to get out of today. That's what you guys are going to get out of No Reps Left Behind. It's a defined process that you guys can tailor specifically to you to be able to get you guys further, get you more closed deals, and get you better leads within the pipeline. So first thing I want to talk about is I want to give you a short story because in order for us to be able to understand why are we doing this, I want you to understand how No Reps Left Behind truly came up. And it goes a lot into my background. When I was coming up through the commercial roofing world, I did not have all of the mentorship that I wish I had. And I was constantly clawing, sorry, for additional opportunities to be able to learn more, different tactics, better ways of being able to do stuff. And that included Audible, that included books. I was a part of webinars, all kinds of different stuff, because I was simply just trying to get better information to be able to make me a better sales rep. Because the better sales rep that I was A, the more jobs I sold, the more opportunity I had to be able to grow within the business I was in, and ultimately more cash that came back to me when I was selling projects. And as I grew into different positions, especially on the leadership side, it became apparent that there was a massive gap within our industry. And the first one is obviously from the sales side, because when you don't have a good sales leader, when you don't have a good sales process, it ultimately comes down to A, do it yourself, or B, quit and go somewhere else. And that both of those suck because do it yourself, you're never going to be happy, you're never going to be fulfilled with getting everything that you need to be great. And the second part of quitting is the hardest thing that you'll ever do as a sales rep, because that means you have to rebuild your entire book of business. You have to start over from scratch. And if you guys are in the same region, you probably got a non-compete or something that stops you, prevents you, or maybe just the integrity of going back to those same customers and having to rebuild that book of business. That's the hardest thing that any sales rep will ever do, is have to rebuild the book of business. So that's the first thing, is that I wanted to make it known that there is a better way to be able to sell, to be able to create value, to be able to become what we're going to talk about is a trusted advisor. There's a better way to be able to do that. You don't have to continue wandering aimlessly, hoping that your question was right. And you don't got to quit your job and go somewhere else, hoping that the grass is greener on the other side. You don't have to do that. And the second part, which was even probably more staggering than that, is from the ownership side. And when you have an owner that is running a company and trying to grow or scale his business, it gets to a point to where you don't have the time to invest into your team, which means you don't have the training that you need. And it's this whole snowball effect that it's like, man, I no longer have to accept that gap between my best and worst salesman. Because your best salesman, possibly more than likely, is going to be the guy who's been there the longest. He has the book of business. He has all of the great customers, right? And then you or whoever it is, you're as an owner, right? You bring in another sales rep, and that sales rep has to create that business that possibly took that first rep years to be able to get. There's so much that we can learn from, let's just say, even that existing sales rep that you have. But how do you build a book of business? And then how do you raise the floor? We've talked about that, or I've said that a few different times now. How do you raise the floor to where all of your sales reps, whether you be inside one region or an entire national entity, have the same skills, training, and assets to have the most success? And the one thing that I'll say, and we'll go through this, is that no two sales reps are alike. And that's why we talk about personal training programs, right? This is not about just taking questions and just winging them out, but it's about understanding, number one, right? What are the milestones that your customer needs to check in order for it to be a good opportunity, a good lead? And then number two, what is it going to take for you as an individual to be able to know how to navigate those waters and how to qualify and disqualify? So my mission statement to you guys is that I'm here to be able to let building owners know that you don't have to tolerate the best and worst sales rep. You don't have to have that gap. You don't have to think about firing a sales rep because they're not hitting goals on where they're at. There's better ways to be able to do that. And as a sales rep, if you're sitting inside here, guys, you don't have to aimlessly wonder if you're asking the right questions, or understand that you don't have a sales leader and you don't have the mentorship or even the ability to be able to make yourself better through recognizing some of the shortcomings or some of the things that ultimately can make you great. That's what we're here to do. And that's what the mission statement of this is. So if you're here, thank you guys. There is no requirement for you guys to be able to be here. No Reps Left Behind is absolutely free. And this is my way to be able to give back to our industry, give back to the business world, that there is a better way to be able to go about sales. There is a more direct way to be able to have success other than throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping it sticks, or saying a different question every time, seeing what the response for the customer is. So the question I'm going to start this out with, guys, is, are you a sought after advisor, trusted advisor, which we'll talk about what that is, right? So are you sought after? Do your customers reach out to you guys saying, I have a problem, help me come fix it? Or are you a desperate sales rep that's following up with every single proposal you have, hoping and praying that your customer is going to award it so you can hit quota? It's deep, but that's the real question I'm going to ask. And we're going to show you guys how to sit inside that sought after, trusted advisor side. And it has a lot to do with the customers that you're working with. It has a lot to do with how you position yourself as an individual and as a company. But this is the question I'm going to ask you guys. Are you a sought after, trusted advisor? Which means your customer calls you and says, hey, Chad, I got an issue. Can you help me come solve it? Or are you a desperate sales rep that's following up with every single proposal on Friday afternoon, hoping that someone's going to tell you yes, hoping that someone's going to have an issue or that rain is going to break something loose? You shouldn't have to wait for rain to be able to sell jobs. It's the biggest thing I'm going to tell you guys. You shouldn't have to wait for rain to be able to sell jobs. Now, I'm not telling you that rain or some type of event like that isn't going to help. It is not going to break loose, right? The pain that your customer has, because every day that it doesn't rain, and we'll talk about this, is one day less that they remember that disruption, that pain, that safety issue, whatever it is that came back. So here's what I want to tell you guys. I am a commercial service expert. I've spent my life in the business-to-business commercial world, specifically in roofing. So when we talk about what we're talking about today, I've been there, guys. I've been on the phones as a telemarketer, inside sales, outside sales, sales manager, and even ending what I'll say is my career as an employee as chief revenue officer over a $15 million commercial roofing company. So I've had the ability to be able to work with $150 million companies and grow into what is now the 4D sales process. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you guys. I absolutely love the industry. I appreciate everybody that's showing up. And this series is going to be dedicated to every sales rep who wants more out of their sales process and wants to be better. Dave, you want to take your side, sir?
Yep. Guys, David Bonney, founder of 45. Essentially, my background, guys, is working in high growth companies, companies that need to be growing 50, 60, 70, 80% a year. Private equity, venture capital, money being injected into these businesses. Most notable is with a $100 million company that was valued at $1 billion on the verge of going public. But essentially, my time in those high growth arenas where they're just burning cash, where you have to figure it out, where you have all the resources that you need essentially, but you still have to go get unbelievable growth. Allowed me to learn a lot about the systems and strategies, and the stuff that we're giving you guys here. A lot of it was built under those pressure cooker environments where massive gains, I mean, gains that are expected far more than the roofing industry. We're bringing those into this industry, giving them to you so you can run your own individualized business and maximize your results, your income, and your impact over the course of 2024 and beyond.
Awesome. I get a lot of questions about how David and I ultimately came to create No Reps Left Behind. And much as like David said, his background inside building scalable and repeatable systems is absolutely phenomenal. And then you put that together with my real world background on the commercial roofing side and living the sales world that you guys live, ultimately creates this potential for completely uncapped success, because we continuously be able to improve sales reps year after year, simply because we understand what each sales rep needs. And then we can work with them on increasing whatever those variables are, or understanding what those 5 fatalities are, and constantly getting better. So David, thank you for joining, and excited to have you on the series, sir.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. So I want to give you guys some real world scenarios. So number one, I want to talk to you about how I took a team of 5 people and built it into a $17 million sales team using a unique sales framework. And I'm going to share what that is, right? But the first thing that I had to do is I had to understand where we were. So each sales rep, and think about this at service levels, okay? So if you look at this and you're like, oh man, I got one project that's 300K. No, I'm talking about service. I'm talking about the incubator to every private negotiated re-roof that you or your company is going to get, okay? And we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but these were $300,000 sales reps. Your average sale was probably about $3,000 to $4,000. So they were selling a lot of contracts. This wasn't just 1 or 2 contracts to be able to make their year. This was a lot of consistent sales. That made it even harder to be able to understand, okay, how am I going to take them from 300,000, which ultimately, when you look at 2 million, there's some right now that are doing 4 and 5 million. So they're still continuing to be able to grow from where they're at. But I'm going to tell you guys how we did it. And we're going to work through what that unique sales framework is. But we took them from $300,000 inside sales, looking for new sales every single week, into a trusted advisor, into ultimately managing Fortune 100 companies and managing hundreds of buildings that allowed them to be able to scale their revenue. Right? Same time, they're still working 40 hours. They don't have assistants underneath them or all this crazy stuff inside there, but they were able to utilize all of the processes, the technology to be able to scale their business. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So it's not crazy. We're going to talk about it in some of the later series called the Sales Magic Trick, and we'll jump through some of that to be able to show you. But first, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background. If you're thinking, nope, I'm not a $150 million company. My company is not a $150 million company. It doesn't make a difference, because I've done this on a local level, single metro, single territory, where you did not have the option to be able to drive to the next city to be able to sell something, which is a huge variable If you are a regional company, which means you have 3 or 4 different divisions or maybe more across a regional side. And ultimately, I've done the same exact thing for $100+ million company that had 17 locations, and we serviced everything from Seattle down to Fort Myers. The same process applied, the same sales framework applied to doing all of this. And when it came down to the people or individuals that I was working with, they came from all different sectors. So the one thing that I'll tell you is that sometimes if you are not a seasoned sales rep or seasoned, I say roofing expert, where it means you've been inside roofing all of your life, sometimes it's easier, guys, to be able to implement a framework that allows you to be able to ask certain questions. And this is just one example. So Tucker, based out of Indianapolis, truly when I met him, he was a waiter at Olive Garden. When I went through all of that, I offered him a position because his people skills were absolutely phenomenal. And we brought him in as a telemarketer, sales development rep. He was simply just calling people and using his personality and the questions that we were giving him to be able to create leads. Fast forward 5, 7 years from that, he's doing over $1 million outside sales in a single territory, which means he's going out, he's finding the opportunities, he's scaling those opportunities. And when I say scaling, I mean utilizing, getting all of the properties that they have, and then servicing preventative maintenance contracts that have 30, 40, 50 locations, all within this single metro, because he utilized a very specific framework. So that's just one example. The second one I have is Cody. So Cody's based out of Dallas. And when we originally hired him, he was an outsourced labor rep, which means basically he went from construction site to construction site saying, hey, do you guys need electricians? Do you guys need plumbers? Do you need any of this? And he would supply the labor to be able to make sure that project got done on time. Very little to do with solving roofing issues, nothing to do with solving roofing issues. So when we brought Cody on board, he was absolutely at zero. He had no roofing background. He had never stepped on a roof. He'd only stepped on a job construction site, right? Walked into that trailer trying to ultimately help them solve their labor problem. We put him into capital sales. We aligned him to some of the largest customers we had, and we gave him this framework to be able to understand, okay, what are the largest issues that the company was trying to solve? And ultimately, he was upwards of 4 million. He was over 4 million within the first 8 months of him coming on board. So he was not only able to be able to find those opportunities, he was able to be able to qualify them. And qualify is a huge part of this, guys, because you can add junk into your sales funnel all day long and you will never sell it. If you have the right qualification process, it's going to allow you guys to be able to understand what is a good lead, what is a bad lead. And trust me, you don't want to be spending your time with bad leads or bad opportunities that you continue to be able to push forward with nothing more than hope. The last individual I'll talk to is Ryan. Ryan's based out of Central Florida. Ryan, when I originally engaged him, he was doing radio station ads. So he was calling up different businesses and trying to sell radio station ads. And that's what he was doing. We brought him in. We knew that he'd be good inside telemarketing. He moved up into inside sales. He was a national account manager for me, to where ultimately he found his home as a strategic account manager. So he had moved through those ranks. And throughout that time, I want to say he's on pace this year for 2024 to do about 4 million in sales. Now, again, guys, I'm talking about service sales. I'm talking about getting in and understanding what your customer is actually worth and being a trusted advisor, which means they're not just calling you when there's roof leaks. You're helping them create budgets. You're helping them maintain that asset to where they don't have to reactively deal with roof leaks. What we do as a roofing contractor is so much more than the price a customer pays. And we're going to go through all of that, solving the bigger problem that maybe you or even your customer's not aware of. But how we do this, guys, is very unique. I've done this in regional, I've done this in, local, regional, and national companies. And I've done this with all different types of sales reps, most of them having zero commercial roofing background. And that's what we're going to be rolling out throughout the series and getting to you guys in your hands so you can start rolling it out. You guys can understand what do you specifically need to do to be able to increase your sales ratio, your sales conversion ratio, to be able to get more sales into the door. The last part that I want to have here before I hand it over to David is I want to talk a little bit about radical candor. Radical candor is ultimately something that was implemented to me And I absolutely loved it because it made working with individuals real. When I say that, and when I explain what this is, you guys will probably understand and have some ideas of somebody. So radical candor is the crosshair of caring personally and challenging directly. Now, that might not mean much to you, but let me explain the opposite sides, because if they don't care personally, right? If they don't care, they're just going to be mean. They're going to say things just to be able to say things. They're going to challenge you. They're going to ultimately sometimes not be very polite about what they're saying. Now, when I talk about challenging directly, if someone's not going to challenge you directly, it means they're going to stay quiet. They're going to watch the house burn down. Oh, I saw this was coming, but I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to be that person. When you find the crosshair of caring personally and challenging directly, it means that you and me and everybody within the group that we're in is going to say it because we care. And you might not like it. You might not agree with it, but you know what? I'm going to say it because the last thing I want is for something to go sideways, backwards, or not how we planned, simply because I had a feeling, a thought, or something else that could be valuable to the end goal of where we're all trying to get to. So I want to talk about radical candor because that's a big part of being within these groups, especially No Reps Left Behind, is that we're not here to be able to sugarcoat anything. We're not here to be able to be super nice and talk about feelings. If we see voids within a sales funnel, if we see voids within how you guys can personally be better and increase your sales ratio, right? Increase the sales that you have, we're going to say it. And we expect the same from you guys. So throughout this entire series, if you guys have questions, concerns, comments, challenges, whatever it is, use radical candor. I don't agree with that. I don't understand. The chat feature is there for a reason, guys. If you're on social media or wherever it is, use it. Let's create a conversation about it because my goal here is to be able to raise the floor. I've already said it a few different times. Everybody here needs to leave these webinars, leave these trainings with something to be able to implement that's going to make them better. And then that's going to be the measurable of how I know that this time was spent wisely. All right, David, you want to take us through the path forward, sir?
All right, guys. So as we go through the kickoff here today, we're going to set the groundwork. And then from there, we're going to get into some very specific items. Okay, this is very tactical. This is very applicable. You guys can take this stuff away and start practicing it immediately. So as we go through the kickoff here and we lay the groundwork, next week we'll be diving into building urgency and priority. The number of times that we're working with a new rep and they've got a handful of quotes over and they're not hearing back, and we immediately ask the question, well, do they need to take action on this? Well, I don't know. They had me out. Well, I don't know. I think so. Who cares? Do they know they need to take action? And helping them understand the priority level and the urgency behind the need to be able to solve this, not by slick taglines, but by effective question asking will get more of your prospects to need to take action, which getting more of your prospects need to take action will improve your close rate. Now, once they need to take action, we also need to understand, we need to diagnose what their needs are and determine if their existing resources, whether it be a vendor that they're already using or their internal resources, maintenance team, et cetera, are already effective enough in their mind to be able to solve this. Because then they'll just cut corners and they'll go for the cheaper route, the internal route, or they'll go, the devil they know is always better than the devil that they don't know. So we know that they need to take action. We're also going to teach you guys how to figure out if they really do need new or outside help. Because if they don't, you're just wasting your time and they're just collecting bids, knowing that they're going to give it to their roofer of choice, the one that they normally use. Okay. Then and only then do you need to start to present your solution. If you know somebody needs to take action and you know they actually need a new vendor, then and only then do you need to present your solution. We'll take you through how to present solutions more effectively in a way that's so different than anybody else in the commercial roofing industry. It'll make you look like a rock star. It'll make your company look unbelievable. And then from there, teach you how to drive it to a decision, confirmation close. And then from there, you have to understand your shortcomings. We'll get into some of the soft skill stuff, some of the psychological stuff on how you can be better at leading yourself. But jam-packed, lots of really great information. We recommend, guys, be here, take notes, get stuff into action. I think half the names, or at least as I'm glancing through it right now, Chad, you guys are repeat attendees. Guys, you guys can come to this every single week all year. And even though we might be duplicating some of this content, we can get deeper into it. You can understand it at a different level. So we're happy that you guys are here. We're excited that you guys are here, but more importantly, we want you guys to take action on the stuff we're teaching you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? Even if you've been a part of a kickoff before, we're continuously being able to implement and change and evolve what we're doing. So you'll see this each time, and hopefully each time it continues to be able to get better. We go deeper into the process, which allow you guys to be able to take those those pieces away and implement. Again, that's my piece of success, right? What is it going to take for me personally to be able to win this? It's you guys taking a piece of this and using it inside the field. Because if you show up, you spend 60 minutes with us to turn it off and go back to exactly what you're doing, that is the definition of insanity, is doing the exact same thing and expecting some type of different result. So if you're here, thank you guys. You're probably here because you want something to be better, and that's what we're here to be able to deliver on. So I want to talk about a story, and I always tell stories because hopefully it'll allow you guys to be able to relate to a customer you have, an experience you have, or just kind of better understand what a trusted advisor is. So this is a real story. This happened, I'm going to say this was probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, something like that. We had a customer called in, I believe it was a Tuesday. Oh, it says it on here. It was Tuesday. It was a Tuesday night. Customer had called in and they said, hey, we have a roof leak. It was a restaurant. Okay, no problem. I can have somebody out there inside the morning. No, not good enough. I have a leak. It's coming in, and it was coming in specifically through a doorway which separated the front and back of the house, which on the restaurant side means the kitchen into the dining area. Okay, no problem. We got somebody out there. Now, let me remind you, it was dark. It was storming out. It was raining. And ultimately, we made the decision that we can't go on the roof. We made the decision because there was lightning, there was winds, there was all kinds of different stuff. We weren't putting our guys, I should say at that point, in any type of harm. And we had a decision to make at that exact moment of what we wanted to do. Now, I can be a commodity contractor, which means we can't access the roof. I can come back inside the morning and let's put a bucket underneath this. But as a trusted advisor, we took a different step. And this is part of the reason that we were so sought after with this unique customer, is that the first thing that we recognized is what was the real problem? What was the bigger problem that we were dealing with? Now, the water that was coming down into this was coming in between that door, right? Front and back of the house. But as we understood what the situation was, it wasn't the water that was the problem. The bigger problem was the puddle on the floor, which was creating a slip fall hazard, because they were bringing the food in and out of that single door. That's the only door they had to be able to move food. So what we ultimately figured out from visualizing what's going on is they were more worried about a slip and fall hazard. They were more worried about the safety of their employees than they were the roof leak. No one cared about the roof leak. The roof was causing an issue in the building that was a slip fall hazard, that was safety, or as I was going to say, detrimental, right, to the safety of their employees. So what we did was something that very few contractors actually take the extra time to be able to do. If you guys have ever dealt with a leak diverter, think of a big tarp, right, that has a hose inside the middle that we can run it to. Now, we kept those on the trucks, and we installed those leak diverters specifically over that area. We ran the hose above the drop ceiling and dropped it into a slop sink. So the easiest way, we put a tarp up, we ran a hose over to a sink that didn't have any type of sanitary side to it. But what we did for the customer was massively different than what they asked us to do. They called us out there for a roof leak. We were unable to be able to access the roof. We were unable to be able to make repairs, which is, from a roofer's side, typically your number one thing that you need to do. Now, where the change happened is, and where the sought and trusted advisor came in, is that we saw the real issue. The real issue was much bigger than the roof leak or the puncture that was up there. The real issue was the slip fall hazard. And we were able to give the customer exactly what they wanted, which was a safe environment for them to be able to carry food in and out of that door for the rest of the business hours that they had. And we were a superhero inside their mind because we were able to show up. We were able to make the area safe for them to be able to get back. And we didn't even go on the roof, guys. We didn't even access the roof. We didn't even climb the ladder. It was deemed unsafe as soon as we showed up. And those are the things that you can do as a contractor, as a sales rep, to be able to make yourself that trusted advisor. It has absolutely nothing to do with the roof. And we'll talk more about this, but nobody cares about the roof, guys. They care about the disruption, the problem that's happening within the building. So this example right here is how you make that shift. How you start to be able to make that shift is understanding that nobody cares about the roof. They care about the disruption that's happening within their business. And then that'll lead us into the milestones. David, anything you want to add to this story, sir? All right. So we're going to jump down to the next one. I want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. Can I do a sound check real quick?
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right, cool. All right. So David, your side.
So guys, when we're talking through this, I mean, the slide that Chad just went through is probably one of the most popular, let's just say, slides that we go through. It's the one that we definitely get the most feedback on in terms of a mindset shift. Being that commodity salesperson, guys, you have no control over what you're doing. You have no control over it. The trusted advisor path puts you in the driver's seat. I'm going to go to the next slide. And the key thing about being in the driver's seat is about knowing how this game plays out. You know, and with the reps that we work with in our programs, we've got some reps that are brand new to the game, and that's completely fine. They don't need to work in this field for 5 years to figure out what are the core objections that are going to kill their deals. We already know what they are, guys. And if you don't worry, Chad and I do, and we're going to tell you all of them over the course of this series. So it's about working. It's about gaining control over your pipeline and over your role, getting out of the commodity path, which is playing into the objections that the buyer has learned to be able to give to get you to shut up and go away. It's about getting off of that path and stop being that commodity person, and about being the trusted advisor and taking control over your pipeline and start taking more control over the deals that you've got. But we do that by eliminating 90% of all the objections before they ever come up. We already know what the objections are, so let's ask the questions and figure out the information so we can either call a spade and move on, or realize that it's not really an issue and we've eliminated that as some excuse for why they're not going forward with us. Not everybody needs to go forward with us, guys, but you guys should at least know why every single one of them doesn't. Okay, so the key to that, like we talked about in the path forward here, is not only about what questions we ask, but it's also how do we call it the 4D sales process. How do we drive people that fourth D, the decision? Too often you guys are just throwing quotes over to the other side and you're not driving them to an actual decision. And in driving them to a decision, right, in our sales personality assessment, I'm a driver. I'm a hustler. I have no problem driving the decision. But I also don't want to make them feel uncomfortable and screw up the relationship by forcing that. So for all you advocates out there that don't want to do it, the way that we drive people to a decision is through a very logical conversation around questions that they need to be able to answer, and you're just helping them become a better buyer. The company where Chad and I worked, the company that Chad and I worked at for a long time, leading the sales group and the overall organization, we talked about the government organization, some of the verticals, or some of the let's just call them verticals that we were wanting to tap into as a company. They had professional buyers in their ranks. These are people that knew how to freaking buy. Well, that was a stark difference than the person that owns the storage facility, their only building. They don't know how to buy this stuff. They don't know they don't know what questions to ask themselves. They don't know how to go through and make a proper decision. And that's why a lot of them end up blaming the roofing company, even when the roofing company hasn't done anything wrong, just because they made a bad purchase. So we need to be able to help them do that, drive them to a decision without any friction. Okay. We've asked the right questions, eliminated all of the objections. When we've driven them to a decision, okay, then that's going to allow us to close sales in a way where we're a trusted advisor. We are somebody that's helping them achieve their end, and they are seeking us out when they have a problem. And that's how we generate not just new sales, but additional sales. And we grow our share of wallet. We grow the account size for the accounts that we're getting in that have a colossal opportunity, right? Some of you guys have accounts that have 15, 20, 30 buildings. and you guys aren't tapping into nearly any of them. You guys are working with maybe one or two. Well, that's because you're not working with them in a way that is separating yourself from the other salespeople that they're dealing with for the other locations that they need to service. So all of this then builds on itself. You're not only getting more sales, but you're growing account size. When we're talking about reps that are doing 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million, 4 million, right now, it takes a while to get up to as you're building accounts and you're continuing to replace those big accounts, right? You have one account that comes through and they spend $1 million with you. They're not going to spend $1 million with you next year. You already did all the work. So you got to go find the next new one. That company's going to, that client's going to spend money with you, but it's not nearly going to be as much. So how do you go find the new whale? All of this stuff is wrapped up in what it is that we're teaching you. It's not only how to eat today, but how to eat a ton in the future and continue to just grow your lifestyle and your income. Okay. We call this the rise of the trusted advisor. The trusted advisor is an individual that works collaboratively with their clients as a strategic partner, not somebody that's just there to take orders. Oh, what do you want me to bid? What do you want us to bid now? Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. No. You guys need to think of yourselves as the strategic partner. You need to think, carry yourself with influence. Okay. And whether you have the extensive knowledge, this is a conversation that I actually had with one rep this morning. It doesn't matter if you don't need to be in the game for 10 years and have a bunch of roofing knowledge. You need to know what questions to ask. You need to know what questions they need to have answered. That's what this is all about, right? And trusted advisors ultimately provide advice and guidance tailored to that company's needs and objectives and that person's needs and objectives over time. Doesn't have to be roofing specific, guys. The stuff that they need from us doesn't actually have anything to do with the dang roof. It has everything to do with prioritization, urgency. It has everything to do with evaluation of existing resources. Again, all the stuff that we're going to get into. Now, when you do that and you are different than everybody else, that is then how you are getting more referrals. You're closing more sales at a higher price faster. The rich get richer in this game, guys. If you keep trying to be a commodity salesperson, I can promise you one thing. You will feel like you're running in mud. You will feel like you're standing in quicksand, because the more that you fight against it, the more you grit, the more you try to get your results to where you want them to be, the harder it's going to be. Take this path and you will just benefit from all of this, from the results of this, and they'll compound year over year for you.
So a few things I want to add to that. So number one, David, you mentioned being a driver, being a hustler, right? That is a awesome personality trait, right? I am the advocate. I am the one that sometimes misses the hard questions or the awkward questions simply because it's my style. It's just how I am. And putting a process like this in place allows me to be able to ask the questions that I need to ask that are going to get me closer to the sale. Because I can tell you one thing that I look back on is that I missed a lot of the questions that were not needed or wanted, right? Like the required questions that truly were going to bring clarity to the customer. And what happened is I assumed the answers because it was awkward to be able to ask. And that was my own, I don't know if it was a failure, but it was. So when I look back at it, I'm just as humble to be able to say, I'm proud to be an advocate, right? I'm proud to be able to have that type of personality trait, but I also have to understand how to use it to my benefit. And I also have to understand the shortcomings of it. And the same thing goes with the hustler. And the same thing goes with all of the other ones. So there's a lot that goes into it. So just because you're not that sign the piece of paper, here you go kind of individual, doesn't mean that you can't achieve what we're talking about. The other thing that David talked about, which we'll go deeper into, is grow versus scale. And he was talking about how you guys possibly work with customers that have a lot of buildings. That's scaling. That's getting more from what you have. And that sometimes is some of the most fruitful opportunities that you'll ever have. Because even if they have 3 buildings and you're working with one, think about how much time, effort, energy, money that you guys put into having to find just one new building, one new property to be able to work at. But the person who's already buying from you, the person who already enjoys working with you, has more locations. And that's the scale side of it, right? Grow is getting more customers. Scaling is getting more from what you have. And that's absolutely something that we work on specifically within some of our programs when we're working with sales reps to be able to say, hey, let's scale your business before we grow. Because the last thing I want to do is to spend all this time, energy, blood, sweat, tears, finding new customers when there's literally sometimes hundreds or millions of dollars sitting underneath your hands that you haven't taken advantage of yet. There's a lot that goes into that, and that's a really, really fun part that we get into when we start diving deep into it. But I want to give you guys this side of it. If you guys are a roofing contractor, and I don't care if you're using a system or not using a system, here's what typically happens. You guys go out and you meet with a customer. And I'm going to tell you, this is 99% of contractor sales that happened within, I'm going to say the world, right? Let's focus on the US, is that you guys go out and the customer tells you the problem that they have. I have leaks that are coming in, and the leaks are, hopefully we get deep enough to be able to understand the leaks are damaging product or creating some type of safety event or something like that. And then you guys say, you know what? No problem. Leaks are coming from up. I can go fix it. So you go up on the roof, or you have your one of your techs go up on the roof, and they create a proposal. And then you come back down into the building, you're meeting with the client, and you're saying, hey, we need to fix this puncture and this open seam and this curb flashing that's failing, and da-da-da-da-da. And that's where the disconnect starts, is that a typical sales rep tries to sell roof repairs to a client who doesn't want to buy roof repairs. They want to buy a solution to the problem within their building. And when you deliver a proposal that looks like the one on the lower right-hand side of your screen, most of the time, it means nothing to them because your customer is not a professional roofer. So when they talk about putting a 60 mil fully adhered TPO tapered system up there, they don't know what that means. They just know they're trying to get 3 bids somewhat the same as what they have, or they're just getting multiple conversations to be able to see who thinks they know the best. And there's a huge gap as sales reps, as trusted advisors, that we can take within that process to be able to bridge that gap that we have within our industry. Don't deliver a proposal with nothing but roofing jargon in it if it doesn't connect to the problem or goal that they're trying to get to. There's a huge, huge gap inside that. So if you guys are accountable for this, I'm going to challenge you guys. Stop selling roofing proposals, because nobody cares about the roof. No one cares about all of the specs that are in there. They're making a decision to be able to change their reality, whether it's stain sealing tiles, whether it's a safety issue that's happening, or whether it's damaged product, or even it's getting on the desk and they can't have their corporate sales meetings. There's something happening within the building that's going to trigger them to spend money to fix it. So think about this. Think about some of the big projects that you guys have quoted in your book of business right now that could be 10, 15, not 10, 15, 100, 200, $500,000. Your customer in their head have made a decision that the problem that they have is worth spending $500,000 on. How crazy is that, guys? How crazy is that? That is where, as sales reps, we have to separate ourselves from being a roofing contractor to being a trusted advisor. We have to help them solve the problems, the $500,000 problem that they have in their business that they're willing to write a check for. And the better that you guys can connect your solution, your specific solution that solves their specific problem, not your proposal, not your cost, not any of that stuff, but the better that you can solve their problem or get them to their goal, is the more likely it is that you guys are going to get that proposal. Or, sorry, I shouldn't say proposal. You guys are going to get that job. That's going to be the impact. Do you want to take us to this side, David?
Yep. So at the end of the day, guys, nearly 70% of potential buyers do not want to interact with a sales rep at all during their buying process. That was from a Garnett study. The big thing about this, guys, is that we call it being seller-centric versus being buyer-centric, right? Chad talked about it. Nobody cares about the roof. Nobody cares about your quota either. And nobody cares about your stuff. So as you're in there trying to sell your stuff so you can hit your quota, so you can hit your deal, and you're just trying to get quotes out there, when you're trying to, right, we call it a date versus a doctor visit for those of you that have been with us through multiple sessions here. While you're over here trying to court your prospect to try to get them to buy from you, all they're trying to do is solve their freaking problems. And we are not useful to them. So it is no wonder why 70% of potential buyers do not want to interact with us. It's no mystery, guys. We need to be buyer centric. They want to solve the biggest problems causing them the most pain. And if you just get on the same side of the table with them and start helping them solve the biggest problems that are causing them the most pain and stop selling them your stuff, then you're going to close more and you'll be that trusted advisor. These are the mindset things that you guys need to have in your mind. And the reason why, because we just want to be 100% clear with you. The way you've been doing it, your prospects don't want to talk to you. They don't want to buy something. They just want to solve their problems. And if they could solve their problems without buying something, without dealing with a roofing company, they would be more than happy to, guys. I promise you. I promise you they would. And this is ultimately what we call the buyer-seller misalignment, this wall of disconnect that's wedged between you guys, not because of anything that they are doing. It's because of how you are choosing to engage and interact in the process. Stop saying thank you for spending the time with me. What doctor walks into the room and tells you when you're sitting there with the flu, hey, Chad, thanks for coming in today? No, they need you. You don't need them. These little things that you do are creating a huge wedge because you're just trying to manipulate them to sell your stuff. We all know that. And all they want to do is solve their problems. So these are huge mindset shifts. And as we go through the content going forward, know that the mindset shift is going to have to be at the foundation of this. You guys need to be a trusted advisor. You need to walk in with authority and influence so that they can look at you and say, this guy or gal can get me to where I want to go. And without them, I'm probably going to screw it up along the way. So I need them. Okay. Now, the stats directly impact exactly what we're talking about here on the other side. 88% of prospective buyers only buy when they see their salesperson as that trusted advisor that we're talking about. This is from LinkedIn. The jig is up, everybody buys, but you have the opportunity to get an insane advantage in your area if you start showing up differently than everybody else that they're talking to. Okay. They needed a trusted advisor because remember, guys, buyers are incompetent in your area of expertise. They're great at what they do. They're not great at maintaining a roof. So you have to be the expert to compensate for their incompetence. It's a big, big deal. They need you. You are the point of authority. You deal with hundreds of people every year that need to fix their roof. They only deal with themselves. They only deal with their roof once or twice a year when it has a problem. Okay. You've got exponential more experience than you.
I don't think, and there's nothing mean about this, guys, because if they had the ability to be able to solve it themselves, they would. So if they've called you in, they've called an expert in, right? Commercial roofing company or, whatever it is. If they've called you in, it means that they are entertaining outside services, right? They want someone to be able to help them fix their problem or help them get to their goal. And that's where the incompetent side comes from, because if they were an expert within commercial roofing, the chances are you'd never be sitting down in that seat. That's where the trusted advisor comes from. They need someone that they trust. They want someone to be able to sit on the same side of the table as them and help them make decisions, not sit on the opposite side of the table and try to sell them something when they're just trying to figure out of the best solution to be able to get them to the goal that they have. Yeah, I have $500,000. Yeah, I'm going to spend $500,000, but I want to spend it the right way. I don't want to spend it to someone who's pressuring me to be able to make a decision. That's where this process comes together and allows you guys to be able to help your clients get clarity and confidence inside the decision that they're going to make, where you can position yourself as that trusted advisor. So what we're going to talk about quickly is what the next several series are going to go through, which are the 3 fatal holes within your buyer's journey. So 3 fatal holes is what we're going to be diving through. Dave, you want to take us through the lost deal side?
Yeah, we'll do this stuff quick, guys, because this is the deeper content that we'll be getting into. And again, the mindset thing is the bigger issue. Okay. But when we look at why you guys are actually losing deals, when it comes down to it, it's really just for 3 reasons. You're losing deals because they're just choosing not to take any action at all, or they're choosing to do it themselves or leverage the existing vendor that they already have who couldn't figure it out already, but they're just going to keep going back to that well and hoping that it works out, or you're losing it to a competitor. Okay, these are the 3 reasons. So if we know that these are the 3 reasons why we're losing deals, then we can actually do something about it. Next. Okay,
So
so
we're gonna
the reason, sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Nope, all you.
So when we look at the holes that are causing this, go ahead and go, we'll go into one real quick. Is this an urgent priority for them to solve? Do they actually need to take action? This is the first checkpoint, guys. And we call these checkpoints because you should not continue the conversation until you figured this out. And we give you guys the buyer's action plan, and we have our notepads for our clients. We have to figure this out first. But the thing we need you guys to understand is the prospect continuum here. When you're talking to somebody, it's not that they're either an unqualified window shopper that's going to waste your time, or they're just a lay down sale. The majority of your deals are somewhere in the middle. Okay. The majority of them in there, they would go if somebody could just have the right conversation with them, ask the right questions, and unpack the right information. Okay. This is how we figure out if they do need to take action. And Chad's favorite concept is discover this and disqualify when necessary so you can move on to the people that actually need you. Stop crossing your fingers and hanging on to these deals with people that don't actually need to take action, guys. It's not putting you in a position of power.
I'll add a little piece to this, guys. When a client lets you on the roof, now this all depends how big your book of business is, right? If you're a new individual that's coming on board, yeah, you got to stock the shelves, you got to do that stuff. But when you get to a point to where you're working as a trusted advisor, you need to understand how to disqualify opportunities, because if you accept every single thing that comes in, you're going to literally have garbage within your book of business, which means you're going to have hundreds or millions of dollars quoted, and you're not going to sell anything this week. That is the definition of poorly qualified opportunities. Because if they have not sold, right, there's something that's keeping that customer from truly moving forward with your proposal. And we'll talk about that inside future opportunities. But there's a huge, huge part inside disqualifying and being confident internally that you guys know that you're going to disqualify this because it's the right thing to do, not only for the customer, but it's also for yourself and your own book of business.
All right. Hold number 2. Just because they need to take action doesn't mean they're going to pick you. And again, because we're not figuring out why their existing resources have not been adequate enough, because we're not going in and having that conversation because we're afraid we're going to upset them, or we're afraid that they're going to think we're talking bad about somebody, or whatever it is. Okay, because we're not doing that, because we're not finding out, can they solve it themselves? Then we're leaving it open for them to continue to go back to the same resources, expecting a different result, which is the definition of insanity. And again, guys, this is just because we're not asking the questions. We're creating these holes. We're going through the entire process, delivering proposals, and we have people that have no intention of taking action, and we have people that have no intention of actually choosing a new and outside vendor. They're just going through the motion and getting bids. And you guys are feeding into this stuff because you're not getting the information. Okay. And as we said before, discover and disqualify if necessary. If they do not need our new or outside help, then let them use their existing resources and let them know if anything changes, I'm here for you. All right. Buyer's journey hole number 3, the last one. Do we have the best solution? You guys are out there trying to pitch your solution, trying to make sure you're the low price when you haven't figured out checkpoint 1 and checkpoint 2. Well, guess what? You don't need to be low price if you're the best solution for them, because it's not about the amount that they're paying for roofing services. It's the amount that they're going to end up paying to get to their results. And when they don't do it right, this is going to be far more expensive than if they just paid your company that is going to get this done correctly. But do we have the best solution? We need to make sure that we're focused on the things that they care about. They don't care about all the details in our proposal. They don't care about all that roofing jargon. They care about other stuff. Okay. Now, when we do this, the key stuff on this is this will eliminate maybes. Should I do this? Should I not do it? Should I use our existing resources? Should I not? No, you've already had that conversation and helped eliminate that. You're asking them very specifically, are we the best solution, when your solution presentation is designed to protect yourself and show why you're superior to the competition. Okay. All of this stuff drives focus to a very confused mind in the buyer. And we say it all the time, the confused mind cannot act. You've got to reduce the caloric burn they have in their process of making this decision. And when you do that, you will win more of their business. And again, discover and disqualify if you guys aren't the right solution for them. Have that conversation with them. You should be directly hitting this stuff head on with every single one of your prospects.
Awesome. So the last thing we'll leave you guys with is what we call the perfect buyer's journey. These 3 checkpoints are absolutely required in order to be able to have clarity and confidence, not only with yourself, but with your customer. Because a lot of times what you're going to find is when you're going through these checkpoints or these milestones is that you are going to disqualify or discover, I should say, as much as your client's going to discover that, you know what? Yeah, I can do this on my own, or I fixed it 4 or 5 times on my own. What's the difference from doing it a 6th time? And you get clarity and confidence on where your customer is at versus trying to sell a roof repair. And you start becoming that trusted advisor that's going to sit on the same side of the table. You're going to understand some of the things that he's tried inside the past that hasn't worked. You're going to understand, are there multiple buyers involved in this? Because I've been in those situations to where you do all of this work and you deliver this beautiful proposal to this individual, and he says, I'm going to give it to my boss and I'll let you know. And that is like the knife into the heart, right? To be able to say, oh no, he's got to sell it to somebody else. And does that somebody else even care about what my contact cares about? And that's the starting point of those 5 fatalities. When we miss these milestones, our deals die and they don't have to. So we'll talk about what those 5 fatalities are inside the future. But no, every one of these check boxes, guys, every one of these milestones that we go through, we have the questions already defined. We already have it set up, and it's set up inside a way that you guys can ask these questions consistently. Okay. These questions are the ones that get you to yes or no. David said it best, eliminate the maybes. So if you guys don't have a copy of the buyer's action plan, reach out to me, tag me if you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, just tag me and I'll send it to you guys. We'll get you this buyer's action plan so you guys understand how to get to these 3 checkpoints and how to qualify. And sometimes even more importantly, disqualify the bad leads, because the bad leads will never cross go. The bad leads will never sail. Okay. You're going to be following up with them and they're not going to be responding to you, or they're going to tell you that it's been pushed to next quarter, or they're going to tell you something to be able to continue your hope. But hope is not a strategy. And we'll go into that. Hope is not a strategy, guys. So if your customer does not have a problem big enough to act, they're not going to do their job. If they have existing resources internally, or they have a contractor that they've been using for the last 5 years and they just wanted to see, okay, I just want to get a couple other bids just to make sure he's honest, the chances of you guys selling that job is very limited. And if you're not able to position yourself as a trusted advisor, as an absolute expert inside solving their problems, it's going to be really, really hard to get that job unless you have a variable such as a super low price or something else that really is going to take you away from those dream clients that you want to work with. Those dream clients, trust me, care more about the outcome of your services than the cost, price, or anything else that's connected to it. And that's scaling your business, guys. So I appreciate everybody joining us. David, anything you want to add before we jump off here, sir?
Nope, I know we're a little bit over, but thanks for bearing with us, guys. We're going to go deeper. We had a couple of questions in chat. We're going to be going through all this stuff on this specific sheet in depth in the coming weeks, guys. So I don't think that you have to scramble and stare at this. So
this is just the kickoff. We're going into every single one of these. We'll be back next week, 2 p.m. Central, 3 Eastern. Thank you, guys. And again, my win from this, take this, use it, go in the field and execute this, because it's the only way that you guys are going to change what your outcomes are right now. Definition of sanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So take one piece, do it, come back next week. Let me know how it worked. Thanks, guys.